All right, so starting with section 3.3, we are going to learn how to solve inequalities using multiplication or division. So taking a look at this table real quick, I want you to consider this inequality. 4 is greater than 1. Now, we know that's true, and we also talked about how yesterday with addition and subtraction, if you do something to one side, right, you have to do it to the other to keep that equality portion of it. So if you notice, if we multiply our original number 4 by 3, that gives us 12. If we multiply our original number 1 also by 3, that gives us 3. Now if you notice, the inequality sign is going to stay the same because 12 is greater than 3. If you continue that process, you'll notice that you'll get 8 is greater than 2, 4 is greater than 1, -4, and -1. If you come to this problem here, if you notice, if you make your inequality sign the same as before, greater than, that's actually not true, right? -4 is not greater than -1. So you have to be very careful with this one, okay? We need to actually switch the sign so it makes a true statement. If you continue this process, you'll notice that you get -8, -2. Again, when you multiply by a negative, you have to switch that sign. -12 and a -3. To make this statement true, you must use that less than sign. So if you look at question 1, what happens to the inequality symbol when you multiply each side by a positive number? Well, if you compare it to the original, it stayed the same, right? It was a greater than sign. So stays the same. But what happens to the inequality sign when you multiply each side by a negative? So what actually happened was we had to flip that inequality sign. That way it made a true statement. So this is very important, and this is different from solving equations. We never had to worry about this. If you multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. Otherwise, you're making a false statement. Now, the same thing happens when it comes to division. Okay, so if you multiply or if you divide each side by a negative, you need to flip the direction of the inequality sign. Okay, so this box is just telling you, hey, if you multiply or divide by a negative, flip the sign. And by sign, I mean inequality sign. So if we go ahead and solve some of these problems, number 1, okay, just like solving an equation, I have a fraction, b is being divided by 4, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 4. I then have b is greater than 8. When I go to graph this, I mentioned yesterday how we only need to graph the 8, the 7, and the 9. Open circle because it's greater than, not equal to. If you draw an arrow here, it's telling us to shade to the right. Number 2, now this is where let's put a little star here. Right, if I'm trying to solve for y, it's being multiplied by -9, so I need to divide by a negative. As soon as I start dividing by a negative, I'm going to write the word flip. Okay, and here's why. You get so caught up in trying to simplify these problems that in the end, when you go to put your inequality sign, you completely forget to flip it. But if you write the word flip, you can't forget. So y is less than or equal to, because I had to flip my sign, -7. Okay, when you graph that, again, you have -7, -8 on the left, -6 on the right. Let's going to be a closed circle because it has that equal to part, and we're shading to the left. Number 2, I need to get rid of that -4, so I'm going to multiply both sides by -4. Again, as soon as I multiply by a negative, I'm going to write the word flip. Those cross out. I'm left with K. Oh, flip that sign. -4. When you go to graph, you get, oh, I'm sorry, +4. Right, -1 times -4. There we go. Open circle, list 4, list 3, list 5. You are shading to the left. I'll go ahead and go to the next page here. Try examples 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, and 9. If I were you, I would just pause this video, okay, try them on your own, and then watch the video and see if you did them correctly. All right, so hopefully you paused the video and now you're watching it. Number 4, this is like a -1t. Right, so I'm going to get rid of that by either dividing by a -1 or multiplying by a -1. Doesn't really matter. Write the word flip so you don't forget. So t is greater than -1/2. When I go to draw this, I'm going to have -1/2, open circle. I'm going to go ahead and do 0, -1, and I'm going to shade to the right. Number 4, my w is being multiplied by -3/5, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply by -5/3, right? Multiply by the reciprocal. Once I write that negative, I'm going to write the word flip. Those cross, I'm left with w, flip my sign. This goes to -10. Now remember yesterday we talked about always having the variable on the left. So we need to rewrite this. So w and -10. My inequality sign is open towards the -10, so make sure it's open towards the -10 when you rewrite it. So -10 has a closed circle. I'm shading to the left. Number 6, I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 3. I don't need to write the word flip because I didn't multiply by a negative. Doesn't matter that my answer is negative. It's only if you multiply or divide by a negative. Open circle. Shade to the right. Now we talked about checking them, so let me just show you one example of checking. Okay, first you can check your graph. If you put -5 into your graph, since it's shaded, it should create a true statement. -5 is greater than -6, so that's good. If you take -5 and you plug it in to x, or why don't we pick a nicer number so we don't have to worry about working with fractions. Okay, if I pick -3, right, because it's shaded, -3 over 3 should be greater than -2. If you simplify this, you get -1 is greater than -2. That is true. So you know you solved it right. Okay, number 7 should have divided by -2. So you get t, flip that sign, is greater than 4. Open circle. Whoops. Numbers that are greater than -4 happen to the right. Multiply both sides by -3. Write the word flip. So a is less than or equal to -15 over 6, which reduces to 5 over 2. Close circle, shading to the left. Divide by 10. Again, I'm not dividing by a negative, so I do not need to flip my sign. All right, you walk dogs in your neighborhood after school. You earn $4.50 per dog. How many dogs do you need to walk to earn at least $75? So if I said, how many dogs do you need to walk to earn exactly $75, you guys would tell me this equation. Okay, the only difference is we're working with an inequality. So instead of having an equal sign, instead you're going to have an inequality sign. So D is going to be the number of dogs. Now, you want your money, so this is what you make over here. This needs to be at least 75. So you want to make 75 or more. So therefore, your inequality sign is going to be a greater than or equal to. Okay, we talked about this yesterday, how when you see the word at least, you always want to make a sign like this or like this, but be careful. Okay, you want what you're making, which is over here, to be at least 75. Therefore, this needs to be greater than or equal to 75. When you go to solve, you'll get D is greater than or equal to 16.67. Now, because D represented the number of dogs, it doesn't make sense to say 16.67 dogs. So instead, that's going to round up to 17 dogs. Not necessarily because this is a 6, but more so if you round down, you're not going to get to $75, right? You'll be short of it. So you got to round up. So you would say you need to walk 17 or more dogs. Again, the main difference between this and equations is you have the word or more. You're not saying exactly 17. Okay, number 11 is very similar. A case of vegetables costs $10.68. You don't know how many cases you're getting. Let's call that C. You have at most 50. So you have at most $50. That means you cannot have this number over here be bigger than 50. So in this case, your inequality sign is going to be a less than or equal to. Once again, you don't want this amount here to be bigger than 50 because you don't have that much money to spend. So it's less than or equal to. When you go to solve it, you end up getting C is less than or equal to 4.68 cases. Now, assuming you can only buy full cases, okay, this 6 would technically tell us to round up. However, if you round up on this problem, you're not going to have enough money to actually buy 5 cases. Therefore, you would want to round down. So they can buy 4 or less cases. Okay, moving on, 3.4. Now we're just solving with multiple steps. So club members are selling Pi Day t-shirts for $7.50 each. Their goal is to raise $500. The figure below shows how much they've already raised. What's the minimum number of t-shirts they must sell? Okay, well I just found what my variable is. Let's call it X. My goal I know is 500. If I sell each t-shirt for $7.50, it's going to be 750x. Now, if you notice, you've already sold $337.50. So that gets added to your $7.50 x. Okay, the last thing is to think of an equality sign, right? Your goal is to raise 500. So if you're fundraising, if you ever did fundraising, you know that you have a goal, and if you hit that goal, you don't just stop and call it a day, right? Your goal is to get above that amount. So that means that we want this money here, this is what we're making, to be at least $500. We're not going to stop if it's $500, so therefore we want it to be greater than or equal to. Okay, when you go to solve, subtract the $337.50 from both sides. Divide by 750. You get 21.6. Now, once again, you can't sell part of a t-shirt. That I know for sure, right? So in this case, we'll round up, because if we round down, we're not going to actually hit our goal of 500. So you would say the club needs to sell at least 22 shirts. You could also say the club needs to sell 22 or more shirts. Okay, so moving on to more so solving of equations. You're going to follow that same process you do with, solving inequalities. You're going to follow that same process that we use to solve equations to solve inequalities. The only difference is you must remember that multiplying by a negative or dividing by a negative flips the sign. So first step, get rid of that 9. 4t is greater than 12. Divide by 4. T is greater than 3. And we won't graph these. Okay, your next question. Again, I would pause this video, try these 3 on your own, and then check them. And again, guys, if I were you, I would absolutely write the word flip once you divide by a negative. You have to train your brain to realize that when you divide by a negative or multiply, it flips the sign. Right? It takes some time to get used to. So that's why I always suggest writing that word flip. I'm going to rewrite this so my variable's on the left. Just get in the habit of that. Right, notice the inequality is open towards the 3, so make sure it's open towards the 3 when you rewrite. Did not divide by a negative, so there's no need to flip anything. Okay, so trying some more word problems here. In a community garden, you want to fence in a vegetable garden that's adjacent, so next to, your friend's garden. You have at most 42 feet of fence. What are the possible lengths of your garden? So here looks like the width, here is the length. We know that we're using perimeter because we're putting a fence up around the garden. So here's your equation for perimeter. The length plus the width, and the width. So we are going to write perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. We need to find what the length is. We know what the width is here. So if you think about this, we don't know length, so I'm going to keep that as 2L. We do know what the width is. It told us it was, what did it tell us? Oh, 12. So 2 times 12. Now we're working with an inequality, right? Because it used the word at most. So I'm going to write 42 and then come back to the inequality. Just a reminder here. So at most, so this over here can be at most 42, so it cannot go above. Therefore, it's less than or equal to. Okay, when you go to solve this, you get 2L plus 24 less than or equal to 42. Subtract 24, divide by 2. So that means that the length can be 9 feet or less. Okay, and if you just check this real quick. So again, you can pause me at any time. If I'm going too fast, just push the pause button. You can check this by taking 9. Okay, so 9 should be the very maximum, right? So if I plug this back into my original equation or my original inequality, 2 times 9 plus 24 for the width, let's see if that's actually less than or equal to 42. So this side here goes to 42. So that, in fact, is true, so we know we did it right. If you don't want to use all 42 of your fence, if you put 8 in here, let's see what happens. You would get 16 plus 24, right, which makes 40. That's also true. So you can see how if you keep going down from 9, it's always going to give you a true statement. All right, go ahead and pause me and try the got it. Okay, so your perimeter is 18. I'm sorry, your length is 18, so 2 times 18 plus 2W. Again, no more means we're going to have an inequality, so I'm not going to put that equal sign. I'm going to put 48. Again, I don't want my side to be more than 48 feet, so it's going to be less than or equal to. When you solve, you get 36 plus 2W less than or equal to 48. Subtract 36. So W is less than or equal to 6. So the width is at most 6 feet. Or you could say the width is less than or equal to 6 feet. Multiple ways to say this. All right, now flipping to the back. Almost done here, just a few more problems with simplifying. No more word problems though. So we're going to use the distribution property up here. Okay, just like we would an equation. 3t plus 3 minus 4t greater than or equal to negative 5. Combine those like terms. Make sure you take that minus sign with it. This becomes just negative t plus 3 greater than or equal to negative 5. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides. Negative t greater than or equal to negative 8. Divide by negative 1. Write the word flip. So t is less than or equal to positive 8. And again, if I'm going too fast, just press pause until you can understand what we just did. Okay, there's no sense in just copying this down to get it done because your goal is to understand this lesson. All right, go ahead and distribute. This becomes minus 8m minus 14. Before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. So I have 5 and a negative 14, which is going to make a negative 9. I'm going to add 9 to both sides. 24 less than or equal to negative 8m. Divide by a negative, so write the word flip. So m less than or equal to negative 3, which is the same thing as saying m is less than or equal to negative 3. Okay, number 4. Having variables on both sides. Same thing. I always move the smallest. Again, guys, always move the variables first. Okay, you'll see why here in a minute when we get to problem 5. So 3n minus 1 greater than 8. Add 1. Divide by 3. No need to flip anything in this problem. Did not divide or multiply by a negative. Subtract 12. Again, you're just subtracting. You're not multiplying or anything like that, so there's no need to flip the inequality sign. All right, and then we come down to our last few problems here. So what are the solutions? Special solutions here. So 10 minus 8a is greater than or equal to, distribute, 10 minus 8a. Okay, please, whatever you do, don't start writing no solution, infinite solution, all that jazz, because you need to go the entire way with these ones. Okay, and I will show you why here once we get through these 4 problems. I'm going to go ahead and move my variable to the other side. Okay, always move the variables first. This leaves me with 10 is greater than or equal to 10. Here's the deal. This is true, right? 10 is greater than or equal to 10. Remember, it's a this or that. Only one thing has to be satisfied. It's equal to. So this is an identity. Okay, also known as infinite solutions. But if you notice, had my inequality sign been different, meaning if I would have had 10 is greater than 10, that would be false, right? 10 is not greater than 10. So unlike with equations where if you got the same number on both sides, you could just say, all right, infinite solutions, I'm done with that one, move on. These ones you need to actually look at the signs. Okay, so must look at inequality sign. Okay, in big letters, I want you to write solve the whole way. All right, this one here, go ahead and combine like terms. We have a 7m minus m, which gives us 6m. I'm going to go ahead and move my variables because you should move those first. I get negative 5 is greater than 7. Once again, with equations, we'd look at that and say, hey, they're different numbers. It's a no solution. Now you need to actually see, okay, is negative 5 greater than 7? And you should be thinking, no, that's false, so that is a no solution. So that means any number you pick for m, it's going to give you a false statement. There's no number that's going to satisfy this inequality. Okay, so let's try the got it. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5n to the other side. I'm left with 9 is less than or equal to negative 1. Thinking about that, is 9 less than or equal to -1? Hopefully you're thinking absolutely not. That's false. No solution. Okay, last one. Go ahead and combine those like terms. 8 plus 6x greater than or equal to 6x plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6x. Again, you definitely want to move the variables to the other side first. 8 is greater than or equal to 2. In the past with equations, you guys would look at that and say, oh, no solution, 8's not 2. However, we have an inequality, and that inequality is saying that 8 is greater than or equal to 2. Well, 8's definitely greater than 2, so therefore this is true. So this is an identity. Okay, so I cannot stress that enough. If you did not write this the first time, must look at inequality sign, okay? Must read inequality sign, whatever you want to say. Please realize what the difference is with these no solutions and identities, also known as infinite solutions, compared to what we used to do with equations. All right, so that's it. About 31 minutes. You should have about probably 30 or 40 minutes at this point to go ahead and work on the worksheet. Please make sure that you turn that worksheet in at the end of class. Okay, try your best on it. Use these notes to help you with it. Really, the only new thing that you guys have learned is the dividing and multiplying by a negative. You flip the sign, and then these new special solutions. Okay, so try your best on this. There is no homework tonight. Okay, I appreciate the hard work I know you're going to do today in class, so I want to reward you with that, with no homework. Okay, so please go ahead, work on 3.3 to 3.4, and then I will see you guys on Friday.